Hey everyone, welcome to the Oasis Podcast. I'm your host, Miss AJ. Thanks for tuning in. An oasis is something that provides refuge, relief, or a pleasant contrast, and that is exactly what you will find tuning into the Oasis Podcast. This is a space where I and special guests will be cultivating intentional and honest conversations about life's journey. Subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts and watch us on YouTube now. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Oasis Podcast. Thank you all for joining me again. I look sleepy, I know. For those of you who are watching this episode, I've had a long day, but I definitely didn't want to end the day without recording this episode. So today's episode of things I've learned to be true is wait on your season. Wait on your time because it's coming. And of course, you know, I love story time and I love sharing just my experiences really to motivate anybody. And I was compelled a few days ago. I just was sitting and thought, and I was like, wow, like everything that I've thought about, that I've wanted, I've prayed for, is coming to pass. And I'm like, I have to record this. Like, there's no way I can't record this. I record pretty much the downs of what's going on, or I record the in the process piece. But I feel like I also need to record when things are actually coming to fruition. And I'm happy to record this. So for those of you who have been rocking with me, thank you. From the beginning of the podcast, which has been now going on, it's been 3 years? Child, I don't even know. But it's been a couple of years at least. And when I started a podcast, it really was going to be like a verbal diary, honestly. A place where I can just unpack things. Because at the time, I didn't feel like, I didn't have a therapist at the time. And I kind of didn't feel like I really had, that's not true. I kind of had people I could talk to. But there were certain things that I guess I wasn't speaking to those people about. And I'm like, let me start a podcast and talk about these things, or have conversations with people about these things to not only heal myself, but to heal others. And so around that time, I was a little bit of a mess. I was definitely in a very uncomfortable space. If those of you, again, who were rocking with me, I talked a lot about being in this weird space, right? Not being bad, but definitely not feeling good. Not feeling like where I am was where I was supposed to be exactly, but also not knowing where I was supposed to go. So, and I stayed in that space for a while, for quite some time. And during that time, I got into a relationship I shouldn't have gotten into. Those of you who ain't catch that episode, go back and I'll talk about that. In that relationship, I just knew I needed and wanted more, right? But I didn't know the how, right? I didn't know the when. Like, it was just so many questions, but I was just in it and just rocking with it, knowing that, one, I knew it wasn't going to last in the way that I wanted to. In a way that I felt it should have, rather. I knew it was gonna last, and it wasn't the feel or the want of the type of relationship that I wanted. And but I was still rocking with it, just trying to figure that out. I was unhappy and unfulfilled with my job. I didn't feel passionate about it anymore. I knew, and I know my purpose, and I knew it then as well. But I was just wasn't getting it from my job. I was still trying to stick it out, still trying to figure it out, to, working with the community, especially people that look like me. I wasn't trying to give them my ass to kiss. So I was really trying to tough it out. But it just wasn't feeling like how it needed to. It wasn't where I needed to be. And that was hella annoying for me. It just felt, like, I know I need to be doing more. I know I need to be doing something different. That was something I was battling with. I was in the home buying process, but I was terrified. Like, at that point, I was super duper scared. I was scared of failure. And I think I might have really admitted that to myself later on that year, but I was afraid. I was afraid of doing it solo dolo. I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of losing all this money that I'd done saved up. And I wanted to give up, but then part of me felt like I couldn't give up because what they gonna say, whoever they were, you know? And I was grieving a few relationships, you know? I was grieving relationships with family. I was grieving past relationships with friends. And I was really holding on, and some, you know, other relationships as well, my intimate relationships. And I was holding on to that trauma. Like, I was trying to move on, and I was making the steps to move on, but I wasn't really sitting with the traumas I experienced, right? The bad feelings, those bad things, like I should have. It's not, I dealt with a lot of things, but not everything and in the ways that I should have. And so I just was in that weird space that I mentioned. Like, I remember, you know, at that time just talking to my listeners, because I wasn't doing videos just yet. Like, I just feel off, right? And not being able to unpack it the way I needed to. And at that time, I was looking for a therapist, and I couldn't find one for some time. So I was just trying to do my own personal work. Had the besties as my as my therapist, but at the same time, didn't want to burden them with everything, because they were also dealing with their own lives, right? Dealing with their own things. And so I just, you know, was trying to figure it out. You know, knowing that something was missing, but I was trying to figure it out. And when, at least for me, when I'm in that space, the best thing for me to do, and the only thing honestly at that time that I felt I could do, was, in order to find myself, I had to get closer to God. And that's just what I did. Like, I just locked into my spiritual self. I prayed. I became intentional. I started meditating more. And that probably was the best thing for me to do. It was the best thing for me to do. It helped me do a lot of things. And what I ended up doing is I became more intentional and actually removed the fear that I had, and then actually for real prayed for exactly what I wanted. So I know a lot of times, I know I did it, I don't know if other people would do it, where we want things really bad, and we're praying, but we're not really asking exactly for what we want, because a part of us is afraid to actually get it. So then if we don't really say it, we know subconsciously we ain't gonna get it. And I think that's what I was doing. I was afraid to admit to myself exactly what I wanted. Therefore, I wasn't praying for those things, right? I wasn't asking for those things. So what I started out doing is, like, literally, and those who know me, I'm pretty organized. I ain't gonna say fairly. I'm organized. And I have journals, I have notebooks that I write in. I'm not a journaler per se, but I do write down things that inspire me. I do write down, you know, I write poetry, and I do write down, I love my pros and cons lists. I love my what am I looking forward to lists. I love my just writing down what I want and how I'm gonna get it. And so I decided, why not do that for the things that I currently feel lost about? So I already had a list about, literally a list of what I wanted in a partner. And so I decided to go over that list, really comb through it. And in that list, in looking at that list, I also decided to look at, all right, I want a partner that has XYZ. Am I ready for XYZ though? Or what things I need to do for myself, so that if this person does show up, that I can actually be okay to receive what I'm asking for. And that's the first time I did that. I was always focused on, oh, I want this person to have blah, 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 blah. And then what I realized in the relationship that I was in at the time was like, oh yeah, I wanted a person who, you know, could do A. But then when I got A from the person, I was kind of like, ooh, I'm not ready to deal with A. And so I was like, boo-boo, you gotta be ready for what you're praying for. Like, what are you doing, right? So that last relationship I was in really did help me identify the things, because I already knew the things I didn't want, right? But really hone in on the things that I did want, and making sure that I was ready to receive those things. So I made a list and kind of, refined my list for the partner that I wanted. And I actually then set an intention for the next job that I was gonna have, right? And when I tell you, like, it didn't have many things on the list. I think at most it was less than 10 things on the list, but I was very specific with what I wanted from my next job. So I did one of those. I also did another intention for the when and the hows of the type of home I was gonna buy and when I'm gonna buy it, and etc, etc, etc. And I think for me, that's when things started actually changing. Like, that's when things, I started seeing the small incremental changes. And for those who might be currently stuck, I say go for it. So what exactly happened? So I'm gonna give y'all, a little rundown about what has happened and since I've started intentionally praying. First things being, I actually found the man that I was praying for. And he literally checks off almost every single one of my boxes. And every single thing, almost every single thing that was on my list. Of course, no one's perfect. He's not perfect. But just like that J. Cole song, he has that line, nobody's perfect, but you're perfect for me. Like, on some legitness. Like, he fits the things that I want, honestly. Minus a few little things, But even in those imperfections, I'm like, I fucks with you. He doesn't even know this, but on my list, I literally have, amongst other things that I want. I'm praying for this man, and I want this man to be praying for me, like literally to pray for me. And he doesn't know that it's something that I prayed for. I told him, that I prayed, for the type of man I wanted, etc. So I told him I prayed for him. But I didn't tell him the piece of, like, I was also praying for a man that was praying exactly for a woman like praying for exactly me. And we've had conversations, and he probably is going to listen to this and be like, what? But we've had conversations, and he's like, yeah, like, I pray for a woman just like you. And I was just like, wow, like, this is how much, like, I'm telling you, like, I was so intentful in what I was praying for. And when I say praying for me, meaning flaws and all. Flaws and all. You know what I mean? And I really, really am. This feels good. I know this was something that was divine. It wasn't just me grasping at straws, just grabbing up anybody. He came when I wasn't really looking for anybody, and I know it was for a purpose. And since we've been together, I've seen and I felt so much growth in myself. He's taught me so many things, and probably a lot of things that he doesn't even know. But there's a lot of things that I have shared with him. I appreciate him. I'm super grateful for him. But enough about him. But I'm just saying, just be intentful, which y'all praying for. The next thing is, I'm finally starting the job that I prayed for. So I started to pray, and actually the job piece came fairly soon after I actually was intentful about what I was praying for. So I would say maybe early months in 2020, I started praying for a job. Now in 2019, I'm gonna paint the picture for you. In 2019, by 2018, I was over my job, but I started looking for jobs in 2019, and nothing was biting. Like, this is usually not a thing for me. Usually I get something, somebody calls me, something. And actually the year prior, so like in 2017, I kind of was throwing some feelers out there, and people was calling me, but I was like, yeah, nah, I think my job is better. I'm gonna stay there. So come now, let's fast forward. Now it's 2019. I'm like, yeah, I'm really ready to go. And so I'm throwing feelers out there. Nothing's biting, like nothing, crickets. And I'm like, the fuck? So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna take a sign as not yet. This ain't your time right now. Like, this ain't it. So I'm like, all right, shit, it's not what I want to hear. But again, I haven't prayed for anything yet, so I'm just like, all right, F it. Now come 2020, I have my breakup. I have time to sit down, to think, to process, because COVID, So I decide around March-ish, yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna apply some jobs. Like, I'm doing this shit. Like, let's go, I'm making this happen. Start applying to mad jobs. I'm thinking, this COVID, people probably ain't calling nobody, but I say, yo, I made this list. I started praying. So, faith without works is dead. So I'm doing that portion. Let me actually do the physical portion. Let me actually apply to jobs, because they ain't gonna come looking for me, right? I gotta go looking for them. So started doing it. Started getting callbacks. I'm like, oh, okay. So now I'm feeling good. I'm like, I got jobs to choose from. So turned out, so I'm like, Then I finally interviewed for a few. I'm like, yeah, these I like these I want to interview for. And you want to hear something? The job that I prayed for offered me everything that I wanted and hired me the day they interviewed me. You gonna tell me that wasn't prayer? Okay. Like, that was divine. Now, timing of starting this job was a whole bunch of things, because now literally I'm not starting the job until a year later. But at the same time, I think that was also needed, necessary. I got to sit my ass down during COVID. Yes, I was working, but I got to work from home. I got to really relax. I got to focus. I got to do so much. So I'm grateful I didn't start that job yet. You know what I mean? And I think the timing that I'm starting this job now it's perfect. It's perfect timing. It really is. A lot of things are picking up right now. So what else happens? I always pray that God keeps people in my life and keep them happy, healthy, and safe. But that also, those who don't need to be here, right? Those who are not really for me, they can go. Don't wish them no harm. But they can exit stage left. And like always, when I ask this prayer, I always get the answer. Whether I listen or not and keep those people out is another thing. But those prayers are always answered. And like usual, people that weren't for me got taken out. You know what I'm saying? And not to say that, of course, you don't have initial reactions, but it is what it is. And I prayed for this. I said, thanks. Appreciate you for what you came and gave me. But sad to see you go. But, I got to do what I got to do. I'll talk probably a little bit more about that in my next things I've learned to be true. I prayed for a therapist. Found my therapist, my bomb-ass therapist that I've been telling y'all about, okay? Divine. And again, finding this particular therapist, how it happened also was like, it had to happen with the way it happened. In 2019, I spent so long, months looking for a therapist. Months looking for a therapist. Towards the latter half of the year, I feel, mid-year, latter half of the year, I finally found one. She was alright. You know what I mean? She served her purpose. When I say that, meaning, at that time, she gave me what I needed. But she gave me what I wanted, rather, not what I needed. And she literally gave me what I wanted. I was like, I just want somewhere I can come and, like, unpack. And, like, when I'm sorting shit out, I don't need anyone to really help me. That's what I said. I don't know. That's what I thought. But, I just need to unpack stuff. I just feel like I need someone to talk to when I need to talk to. And she gave me that. But what I needed, I got from the therapist I actually found. And how I found her, again, like I said, was divine. I went back to the practice that my old therapist was at. She had left the practice by this point. And looking like, oh, okay, maybe she went back. I don't know. No, actually, I hit her up and she said she wasn't no longer at the practice, but she was doing private practice. And, whatever the case was, I honestly didn't feel it was worth paying her out of my pocket, because I knew I wasn't being I didn't feel comfortable with her enough with her to really give her the trauma that I needed to unpack. Like, I had some shit that I never told any therapist, and I've been to therapists before, and I didn't really, I would give him surface shit, I'll give him a little something, but I wasn't giving the stuff that I know I needed to. And I was at a point where I needed to be able to do that. And so I went back to the old practice that she was in, hoping, maybe there would be somebody else there. And this was a recommendation. So one of my friends recommended the therapist that was there, where she owned the practice. So I was looking for her. She was no longer taking anybody. So she then connected me with my current therapist. Divine. And I told y'all about that. Y'all can also go to my other episodes, Therapy is Life, etc., etc. Or I talked about her in several episodes. But from the moment I met her, I came in there like I came with other therapists. Yeah, this is what I need. This is what it is. Da 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 da. And she looked dead at me, was just like, nah, that ain't what we doing. Here, what we gonna do? And I was just like, what? I ain't like it, but I liked it. And ever since then, we've been rocking out. And now she is damn well somebody that I would pay out of motherfucking pocket. And I am paying her out of pocket because, again, sisters gotta glow up and do their own private thing and do their thing. And she is worth every penny, so I'm definitely paying her out of pocket. So that was something that I legitly prayed for. And with her, I was really able to talk about things I've never talked about with anybody. I unpacked so much trauma with her, and I grew substantially. I learned how to be vulnerable and really sit in that space. She helped me do so much. I grew so much in the months. What's it going on? It's been over a year. Oh shit! It's been over a year. that I've been seeing her, and I've grown so much. I've grown so much. I've seen the growth, she's seen the growth. And those who know me, have seen my growth, and I'm beyond grateful for that. What else have I done? God allowed me to not only get rid of people that wasn't supposed to be in my life, but also reconcile relationships with people who, had whatever falling out with, had whatever misunderstandings with, and we were able to connect. It may not necessarily be on some we're buddy, but it's on some I fucks with you now and we're good. It's not on some like you in the same space, I'll be cordial, but it's on like I'm comfortable. I got my boundaries up though, but I'm good. I don't feel like I need to have my face turned up. I don't feel like you trying to stab me in the back. It's more like all right, I see who you are. Okay. And I am who I am. And I don't want to get rid of this relationship. I don't want to discard this relationship. And again, it could be with family or others. So I'm going to keep my boundaries out. I'm going to keep myself safe, but not on a wall. It's not a wall. It's not a brick wall. It's more like a fence. Right? Like, I can see you. You can see me. We can hear each other clearly. But this has to be here because I know you got some tendencies that don't really sit well with me. And, so we got this gate here. My boundaries are up. And it feels good and I feel good about it, right? It doesn't feel like what I've done in the past. Or I feel like I got to cut the person off. Or I can't be myself around them. No. I mean, they're them. We're good. And I actually appreciate that. Because it's not all relationships you should throw away. Not all relationships should be thrown out. And for those relationships, I'm grateful that they are here. And I'm grateful that I can keep my boundaries up. Because it's usually when I put my boundaries down, I'm like, oh, maybe they gonna change up. That's when you get slapped, right? That's when you get stabbed. So boundaries are up. They know what it is. I know what it is. And we get to be in each other's life, right? I think that's a win-win. And lastly, I wouldn't say it's the most important thing, but it is super important for me, is I learned to be vulnerable. I not only learned it, but I'm actively working on it every day. And not viewing it as a sign of weakness, not viewing it as something wrong with me that I wanted to be vulnerable, or even feeling that I couldn't be. Because I was expecting people to hold me in that space. And if they didn't hold me, I didn't have to be vulnerable no more. Now I'm like, standoffish. I don't want people to get close to me. And just all those things, that hurt people do. And being able to unpack that trauma, being able to reconcile with people, being able to just do so many things that I did, maybe it was like, it ain't easy though, don't get it twisted, but I feel so much more comfortable with it. And having the people that I have in my life that allows me to be vulnerable is also important. And I pray for every single person that's in my life because I needed them. I've been praying for them for years, and they're finally here, and I'm beyond grateful for them. So I know that they're here for a reason, for a purpose, and it's not to burden them. I'm not trying to burden them, but at the same time, I know they don't see me as a burden because we talk about this, right? I'm able to say these things to them. They're able to say these things to me. I can come to them crying. I can come to them mad as hell. I can come to them on my thug life shit. I can come to them mad prissy. Like, I can come to them however I come to them, and they hear me and they see me. And it's not to say those relationships are perfect. It's that, but they're real. Like, they're real. We can have a disagreement. We disagree this moment. The next moment, that was that. We talk about it, move on. And that's the type of shit that I need, that keeps me in that space, that lets me know, right, that person actually sees me. And I think that's so important, being seen and being heard from those who are around you and those that you care about and you love. And I feel honestly eternally blessed. Like, I feel blessed. I honestly never felt that I would get to this space. I wanted to be in this space, but I never felt I would get into this space. And the truth is that I never gave myself permission to do it. I was so fearful. I was so afraid of what had happened in the past, of being hurt, of the what ifs. I didn't give myself permission to pray for what I actually wanted. I didn't give myself permission to really believe it can happen for me. And finally sitting down and conquering that fear, honestly, finally sitting down and saying, what's the worst that could happen? Mad shit done happened already. So thinking positively, how bad can shit go? Or really asking for what you want, really working towards what you want. How bad could that really go? And honestly, ever since I really took that perspective and just started focusing on those things, and I had my moments, you know what I'm saying? It's not, you can't just overnight go from being a pessimistic person or a negative thinker to a positive thinker, and then it's just rainbows and butterflies. Like, that's not how it works. However, being mostly positive, and in those times of when you're feeling down and feeling ugh, you know, that's when hopefully you have your support system. But that's when also you can go back and look at, girl, you done pray for XYZ, look, it happened. Girl, you done this time last year, girl, you was not in this mental space. This time last year, you was feeling like this, that, and the third. Now look at you. Going back and honestly looking at how things have manifested in my life has just made me, when I'm in those tough times, get over them a lot quicker instead of sitting in them and seething and making them pretty much grow, because whatever you give mental energy to, capacity to, is what's gonna live, right? But those moments come and they go, you know, and because I'm human, it's gonna happen. But I am honestly just eternally blessed. So I wanted to record this because I actually took a moment to sit down with myself and really like, wow, like all this stuff is happening. Like, this is crazy. But at the same time, it's not, you know, like, it's beautiful. It's amazing. And so I wanted to give this word of encouragement for those of us, because I'm still part of us. I'm still growing and healing, but who are struggling, who are just like, yo, it's never my time. You watching other people, you know what I mean, shining, growing, glowing, and you're like, shit, like, what about me, right? Keep praying, but be intentional. Stop being afraid. Ask and pray for what you really want, right? And know that your season is coming. I never thought I'd be here, but my season is now, and it feels amazing. Like, it really feels amazing. Touch of fear. Still a little scared, because you can't just shake your old self that quick, but I'm basking in it, at least trying my hardest to bask in it. And the beautiful thing about being in your season, me being in my season, is knowing that there's so much more to come. For today's Connection Corner, I leave you with, blessed is she who believes that the Lord will fulfill his promises to her. Luke chapter 1, verse 45. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Oasis Podcast. I hope you were able to find something that resonated with you on your journey. Don't forget to subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts and YouTube. Rate us and leave us a review and comment on Apple Podcasts or iTunes and YouTube. Share your favorite episode and like us on Instagram and Facebook. If you have any questions, comments, want to be a guest, or have show ideas, contact us at ajaysoasis@gmail.com. That's AAYJAYSOASIS@gmail.com, or direct message us on Instagram or Facebook.